My name is Nicole Rousseau, your moderator and member of the Site Education team, and I'd like to welcome you to Site's 2015 Global Week of Education. Today's webinar, Incentive Travel Planning and Logistics, will be presented by Anne Garvett. Today's webinar is about to begin, but first a couple of go-to tips. Please note that all audience members are muted. This assures high audio quality and clarity for speakers. We encourage feedback and we'll have Q&A throughout today's webinar. You can submit your questions at any time by typing into the question and answer box located on your toolbar. As time permits, we'll answer questions from our audience at the end of today's program. We will try and address all your questions, but if you happen to have a question after the webinar is finished, feel free to contact me directly via email at education@siteglobal.com, or feel free to reach out to the speaker directly. And now I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker. Anne is a sought-after speaker and trainer in the events management field. With 23 years in the industry, she possesses in-depth knowledge in all areas of event and meeting management. She is a CMP study group leader, and a recent contributing author to the Convention Industry Council's 9th editional manual. She uses her subject matter expertise in meetings and incentives to help inspiring, new, and experienced event managers further perfect their skills. After 6 years of managing multi-million-dollar incentive trips and business meetings at Maritz Travel in Fenton, Missouri, she expanded her knowledge base by becoming an instructional designer and trainer of meetings and incentives. She was promoted into Training and Development Director role and added the skill set of process definition and improvement to the tool belt. She earned her Six Sigma Black Belt at Villanova University and is an experienced economy certified expert through Pine and Gilmore. She enjoys teaching event management at the college and university level, and interactive style of training and continually receives high marks on attendee surveys, and attendees are always agree her sessions fly by too quickly. And with that, I'd like to welcome Anne. Welcome, Anne.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Nicole. I hope you all are doing well this morning. Happy Wednesday to you, and happy continuation of your education week. We're here today to spend about 45-50 minutes in delivering some content to you, and then again, as Nicole said, I will be leaving some time at the end for Q&A. But I would like to welcome you to the session on managing incentive travel programs. And we always start our objectives or our classes with objectives. So by the time we are finished with this time spent together, you will be in a much better position to plan an incentive travel program from the very definition through to the final evaluation. You will also be able to identify the key logistical details involved in managing incentive travel programs. And many of you may know that Site set out a couple years ago to really start to provide more education for those of us in the incentive business. We know that with MPI and the CMP, there's a lot of content available on meeting planning with the heavy meetings focus, but there hasn't been as much content available on incentive trips. And with that said, Site gathered numerous people, a lot of subject matter experts, and they designed some courses for you all to be able to take to just add more tools to your tool belt. I'm hoping that some of you on the phone as well have been able to go through the CIS certification or the certificate in incentive planning, and that will really help set the foundational education that you need. Over and above the CIS, then, Site has created 4 sessions, and they're listed on the screen in front of you right now. They have designed these sessions. There's one called the Business Case for Incentives, another called Selling to the Incentive Market, another on budgeting and marketing these incentives, and then this particular course that we're going to cover now on the planning and logistics. So I would really encourage you all to keep, an eye out for future conferences. Site is going to a lot of different major conventions and conferences to offer these particular sessions. And so I would encourage you to look for those opportunities. Let me go on to the next screen here then. Sorry, my screen. So again, this is a photo of me real quickly up in the top corner. And again, my name is Anne Gravett, and I work at a company called Maritz Travel in St. Louis, Missouri. This is a picture of our campus. And I serve, as Nicole mentioned, as the Director of Quality and Development. I have kind of a dual role of both training and process improvement. And if you're not familiar with Merit, and again, Site just asked me to speak on their behalf here, but Merit is a 121-year-old company. We started in 1894 when our founding father actually started a jewelry company. And then in the Depression, people were not spending money on jewelry. It was just a luxury that people could not afford. And so he began to put company logos on watch faces. And then he would go into companies and say, you need to inspire and incent your sales force to sell whatever your product or service is, and then you can reward them with a watch with your company logo. So really that's how we got started in the incentive business, and now we've grown to a multi-billion-dollar organization since then. So I want to go ahead and take you through kind of what I consider the profile of an incentive travel program and what makes incentive travel different than, say, a festival or meetings or other type of special events. And hopefully you all are familiar with some of these things, but generally people need to do something to earn the trip. And with that, in most cases, we think of it being associated to sales programs, incentive sales campaigns, but there are other ways that people can earn a trip as well. We have done things around safety. If you have a safety record of, such and such, then you can earn perhaps a trip. Or if you submit ideas that save your company money, then you can earn a trip. So there are other ways than just sales. Generally, because of this, your group count might be a little bit smaller than some of your huge citywide conventions, obviously. And a lot of times they can bring a guest. If there's someone who has earned the trip, they can bring a guest along with them so that someone they care about and love can share in that experience with them. Generally, you might have a good amount of lead time in planning because there is an incentive that is going on. So while the people are striving to earn this particular trip, we can be behind the scenes planning for it. I know when we do meetings sometimes, it might be a new product launch or a new drug launch, and we get FDA approval, and then we're ready to roll it out, and we do it with a 4-week turnaround. So a lot of times with incentive, you have a lot more lead time. You're often going to higher-end properties and destinations, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Sometimes there is a longer duration of the trip because we want people to get to the destination, have some time to start unwinding and relaxing to reward them for such amazing accomplishments. And so, we're not talking about a 1-day, 2-day meeting in most cases. We hope that sometimes there is a little bit more generous budget because, again, a lot of times you can do the return on investment and show companies when your sales force or your employee base works and performs at a level, you're going to end up earning so much revenue as a company, and then you want to take some of those profits and turn it into the incentive trip. And so we hope that you have a little bit more generous budgets. Generally, we have a little bit higher end if you're doing some type of web registration. Maybe there are a few more bells and whistles and graphics and pretty color, and the communication that we send to them might be a little bit more elaborate, something not just a boring old envelope, but maybe they get a box or something really cool that we send to them. And then also, we often include room gifts. So when the guests get to the hotel, maybe there's something waiting on the nightstand for them. We find that generally incentives have more of a high-touch service because the people who go on the trips have indeed worked extremely hard to get there, and they are the top performers of the hosting organization. There's very much a high white glove service and treating them as the VIPs that they are, so that they will want to, again, go back and continue that high level of performance. And then we feel that you often get a more elaborate guest experience, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that within the coming slides. And then again, we see a lot of more detailed inclusions with extensive activities, golf, spa, tours, that kind of thing. Perhaps some entertainment, maybe some more elaborate decor, more unique food and beverage. So for the many of you who have dabbled more so in meetings management or just events as a whole, I like to start out with the foundation, just to reiterate what makes incentive travel look a little bit different than some of those more traditional types of events and meetings that you might be planning. All right, so on to our next slide. I wanted to talk about how important it is to plan up front. If you are doing an incentive trip, sometimes you are going to these unique destinations that might even be off the beaten path a little bit. And sometimes in some of these more unique destinations, they may not even cater as much to the large groups. If you're doing international programs, there's just a lot more emphasis that needs to be put into the planning because you may not be doing something that's highly expected in a city that gets a lot of its revenue from travel and tourism. So we're going to focus a little bit on the importance of planning. And I do want to highlight also that there are numerous phases involved in incentive travel programs. And so I'm going to let you know about these phases. First, we have the proposal and costing. So if you perhaps work in sales and you have found a potential client that would like to do an incentive travel trip, we're going to obviously need to make a proposal to them and let them know where they can go, what hotel, what are the inclusions, and then of course not only do we tell them what they're doing, we need to let them know how much it's going to cost. So we do the costing as well. We hope that once we make that proposal, we are able to wow them and they love it and they decide to buy it from us. If that's the case, we want to move into the contracting phase to make sure everyone is on the same page and they know exactly what they're getting and that we as suppliers know what to deliver based on that. We then go into the planning and delivery, and again, I mentioned how important the planning is, but for every piece of the event, we need to plan and then kind of have the deliverable come to fruition. So if we're planning for a registration website, we need to plan it and then have it be delivered. If we're planning for room gifts, we need to plan for them and then have them be delivered. So there are many components that we need to go through the iteration of planning and delivery. There is then a qualifying period. So the potential travelers will be back at their employer and they will be working to qualify for this particular trip. And we will talk more about that. And then we go into the mode of the travel operation when everything comes to fruition and the guests begin arriving and we logistically move into the operation of the overall event. And then we generally should have some closing activity, obviously. With the closing, we'll probably have some debriefing meetings, talk about what went well, what we can improve upon. We probably want to survey the guests, and I think that's some of this is in the next stage as well. We want to do an evaluation, and we want to debrief with the client. Within the closing phase, you probably have to do all of your accounting and reconcile your bills. So I'm wanting you all to just kind of take this screen in a little bit and see the different stages from the proposal and costing all the way through to the final evaluation and debrief. And so with that, if you have been traditionally doing events or meeting planning, a lot of the things on the screen probably look familiar to you. I think a lot of this is just good project management or project management 101. We do a proposal, we do a contract, we plan, it gets delivered, and then we close. What makes incentive travel different is that this entire qualifying period is indeed going on. And again, we'll talk more about that. The rest of these boxes and the rest of these functions again, should look relatively familiar to you, no matter what type of events you have planned in the past. So with that said, going through the phases, within the proposal phase, it's very important that we spend time discovering our client and qualifying what they want. We don't want to be so excited to offer an incentive trip that we're just so excited about closing the deal that maybe we do the wrong thing for the specific client. So we really want to spend time getting to know them and learning about them. Most important, we want to understand what is the goal of their program. So we want to have a lot of robust conversation around this. Are they wanting to inspire people? Are they wanting a lot of downtime, a lot of leisure time? Are they still wanting people to connect and network? And so what we want to do is really find that out. It might be incentive, but there still needs to be a small educational component as well. So we want to ask a lot of questions about what are they trying to accomplish with the overall goal of the program. Obviously, we need to have a good idea of what their budget is coming in, and budget is really going to drive, obviously, the inclusions and the destination that we select. We want to know about the audience demographics, of course. It's very important for us to know their age. Are they 20-somethings? Are they the board of directors and have a lot of longevity and seniority? Are they, what kind of salary income do they make? Are they, again, fresh out of college and making their first salaries, or are they very accomplished in their professional career? So it's important for us to obviously know the demographics so we can match up the right destination and the right inclusion. We also want to know the size of the program. Obviously, we want to know what is their best guess estimate on how many attendees they will be having. Normally, they budget for that, and they say, we know for a fact we're going to have 200 top performers, and each of them get to bring a guest along with them. And then we will be tracking and measuring to see how they're doing against that goal. But we want to know the size of the program. If you end up picking a destination that's more of a small boutique hotel, maybe they have too many people who earned, and then we have to go in waves and have different start dates and have a little bit longer program spread over different waves. So the size of the program obviously is very important. And then we, of course, want to look for the program lengths. Are they looking for a 3-day, 4-day, 6-day, 10-day? And so, of course, all of these things will drive our decisions. What we really want to do also as we pick the destination, we're really striving to pick a destination that would be perhaps something that they really want to aspire to. We want to do something that would be something perhaps that they could not do on their own, because obviously we're going to work very hard to earn something that's highly motivating for us. So it's very important as we gather these details that we consider a unique type of destination. And then the next thing we want to do is really pull together with our proposal team, our sales team, our operations team, whoever within your organization is involved. And we really want to pull together and be intentional about designing what really will be a rewarding experience for them. And I would really encourage you all, if you've not begun to dabble in research on design and principles of design, I would really encourage you to become a student of design and also become a student of experience, because today everyone wants an experience. And I could give you guys endless examples of experience that we get and what we're willing to pay for. Even here in St. Louis, we have the Cardinals. And I remember going to a baseball game when I was young, and we would go to the baseball game and sit down and watch the game. Well, now it's going to a Cardinal game, and hopefully you guys go to your own baseball games in your own hometowns. It's become an overall experience that the mascot is there. Here we have like kind of Cardinal cheerleaders that get up on the dugouts, and they're slinging T-shirts out into the crowd. and you can then take pictures of the McDonald's Big Mac up on the screen, and you're doing the follow the ball under the caps, and you can go down to an area and take batting practice. And so going to a baseball game is a completely different immersive experience than it used to be. Stores like Build-A-Bear Workshop, even getting your coffee in the morning at a place that has Wi-Fi and classical music being piped in. Everything is about the experience. And so our travelers have an increasing expectation where experience and getting immersed into the experience. So I would really encourage you to become students of design and experience, and it's really going to change the way you actually plan and design your events. With that said, I've pulled up a few of some of my favorite principles on design. And one of them is just that we want to really do a good job of perspective taking. And so as we plan our events, we want to walk in the mile of, or walk in the shoes of those who might earn this trip. So as we do our site inspections, we want to think, from their perspective and say, if I were a guest, would I like this? I actually have a friend who recently went on an incentive trip, actually not done by Merritt, thank goodness, but she went on an incentive trip, and she was actually a top performer. And she wanted to go to the spa on her trip, and the spa appointments were actually all booked. And so she didn't get to go to the spa, and she had really wanted to. But then when she got there, she realized that the people who were getting to go to the spa were actually a lot of the spouses of the hosting organization, if you will. And so we always have to ask the question, who are we really planning these events for? We're really planning these events for the people who earned the trip. And we often, ask the question, like, if a guest is getting on an airplane and they're walking back to coach class, but they're walking past all of the, event planners, we kind of have to say, who are we planning this for? Are we planning it for us and our executives, or are we planning it for the guests? So we always want to take the perspective of the guest. We also want to look for opportunities for exclusivity. And that might seem a little backwards, but can we have an event that is only for the first-time attendees? Can we have a special check-in area that is only for the people who have earned this trip on a repeated basis? So actually using exclusivity can actually be a very powerful thing. We want to also make sure we're putting a lot of authenticity into our incentive trips, and that if you're taking them to Mexico, we want to make sure that we're feeding them food that is local, that we're having maybe a time to go out into the community, their music, their dress. Let them really experience the local flavor and the culture, rather than maybe keeping them in a hotel ballroom and kind of doing decor there. So we really want to try to have authenticity wherever we can. There's a lot of studies done on neuroscience saying that people really like to rally around a shared identity. And already when people have earned an incentive trip, they already have a shared identity because they have the common bond of being the top performers. But what can we do to further reinforce this shared identity? Can they all wear a little pin on their, a lapel pin? Can they all have a red jacket with the company logo? So when they're walking around the hotel, people identify them. And having your speakers have motivational messages that reinforce this shared identity, it's very important. We always look to have like a pinnacle peak moment that we kind of call the wow moment. And so when we design our programs, we kind of work with our suppliers and say, what is the wow moment going to be? What is it that they're going to go back and tell all of their friends and family about? So I would encourage you to look for these wow moments and build them into your program. We also strive to add a lot of personalization to our trips because people like that personalization. So not everyone wants a crystal vase as a room gift, but maybe you do a gift market where the guests get to come and pick out their gift. We also try to build in the 4 E's of educational components, entertaining components, aesthetic components where people like to just be. They like to just hang out and they can just kind of absorb it all. And then also escapist moments that we can really transform them from one sense of reality to another sense. And these are why sometimes we try to say, you know, do this experience for a day, be a dolphin trainer for a day, be a chef for a day. These type of opportunities that let them leave the everyday mundane world that many of us live in and go do something completely different. So I hope that you all got something out of these design principles, that we find them to be extremely powerful. So with that said, as you also move into these site inspections, they give you a wonderful opportunity to think about some of these design principles. And it is very wise to obviously do site inspections on your incentive trips. And I would just say what I have found to be different about site inspections on incentive is there's just a little bit more attention to detail. Often you have to look at the sleeping rooms in a little bit, with a little bit more of a keen eye. Sometimes there's a hierarchy of the people who earned the trip. And just FYI, you'll hear me say earning a lot. We try to stay away from, you know, the notion of saying someone won a trip. Sometimes if you say, oh, I won something, it implies that your name was picked out of a box or you purchased a ticket. But when we talk about incentive travel, it really wasn't by, you know, luck that someone got this trip. It was by their hard work that they earned the trip, and we want to be very respectful and congratulatory over that fact. But because of this, perhaps the people who sold the most amounts or met the best sales quota, they might get to be in suites, and then someone who was the next tier down might get to be on concierge level, and then maybe your first-time winners that just hit the sales goal, they're going to be in regular run-up house rooms. So often on your site inspections, we spend a little bit more time thinking about who will we be placing in which rooms. We might be looking more at the views and giving the best views to the highest earners. So a little more detail on looking at the sleeping rooms. We might be having a hospitality area or hospitality suite, so we want to spend a little time on assessing what that's going to look like. We try to build the 5 senses into our site inspection. So we would look at a hospitality area or suite and say, when I walk into this room, what stimulates my senses? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Might I switch out some regular old chairs and put some soft, comfy couches? What does it smell like? Might I have coffee? Might I have fresh floral? Might I have homemade chocolate chip cookies? You know, what does it taste like? Might I have a table full of, you know, food and maybe a flavored water bar? So again, you're just going to spend a little more time looking at your hospitality areas. When it comes to food and beverage, we often do tastings, and we like to sit and you know, have the chef work with us as to what we will be getting. We might ask our suppliers to simulate what the tables will look like, show us the linens and the napkins and the chair covers and what kind of dishes that you will use. We also spend more time on activities, and we also look a lot of times, because we're going for authentic feels, we're often looking at more off-site venues. And again, anything you can do to further personalize the class or personalize the overall event. We have done things where we have the hotel monogram the pillowcases or monogram the robes and that kind of thing, or have a welcome letter from the president of the company congratulating them on their efforts. So anything you can do to look for opportunities to personalize. And then again, I'm just going to call out that authenticity a bit when you do your site inspections, to really kind of push the suppliers to show you the authentic components of their city. So with that said, I feel like I'm talking quite a bit at you here, and I know we're saving questions till the end, but I wondered, Nicole, are there any questions that have come through the chat yet?
No, we haven't had any questions at this time.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure I take a moment to breathe and make sure that you all have that opportunity. So please remember, if you have any questions on the content I'm covering, you can feel free to go to the panel on the GoToWebinar and put that in, and Nicole will share those with me. So thank you. All right, so we often do our site inspection, and we sometimes do this during the overall proposal phase. And when we are, sorry, I'm going to go back a slide here. During the proposal phase, we just want to continue to look for opportunities to customize the proposal for the client. So again, learning as much as we can about the client, and then really doing a wonderful proposal that has been customized for our clients. Sometimes we go into a room to do the proposal, and we actually simulate the destination. If we're doing Ireland, we might all come in wearing, Irish wool sweaters and serve some tea and scones and have Irish music. So whatever we can do to customize for the client is very important. As we're in the proposal phase, we're going to be engaging our suppliers, obviously, because we, of course, cannot do this on our own. So we're going to be reaching out to the hotels, to destination management companies. A lot of times there's great value in working with your convention and visitors bureaus or your CVCs. No one knows the city like they do. And any other supplemental suppliers. So obviously we want to be really intentional about how we engage them. We're normally not, looking up in the yellow pages for these companies. There are sourcing tools available to you to find these particular reputable companies. We want to make sure that they're fully licensed, insured, bonded, that they have a strong Dun & Bradstreet rating. We would never want to obviously engage with business to find out when we get there with our guests that that particular company has gone out of business. So we want to be very intentional about working with reputable companies. And so we generally will send to them a request for proposal to say, we have a client who wants to do an incentive trip and we need your assistance. So we're going to share all of the details we know, perhaps who is this client, the demographics of their guests, what our budgets are, and then, the expectations of what we need to get from them. We need your help with transportation. We need your help with entertainment, perhaps with team building. So we'll give them the details of what we need from them. And then, of course, we want to give them the response date. We'll need to hear back from you by May 15th. And then it's good to give them an idea of when the client hopes to make a decision. So we want to obviously just partner very strongly. When we send our RFP out, I would just charge you all with really working with your suppliers and kind of, raising the bar on what they can do for your client on incentive travel. These are some good questions that we generally like to ask. Are there any local events that may be taking place? Hopefully these would enhance your event versus kind of sabotage it. And if there's heavy traffic and there's no place to eat, it could actually be maybe not something we want to tie into. But if it's something that is giving that authentic flair of the destination, we might want to tie into the local event. We like to ask the question, what is the most unique event you have ever seen? And then, kind of ask them to maybe simulate or help us craft that it would be good for our group as well. I like to say What is something you've always wanted to plan and implement? You've had this dream in your mind. You've had this vision. Well, help us, make that a reality. We also like to ask, what is something the attendees could not do on their own? Are there any backstage tours? Can you have breakfast on the Great Wall of China? I don't know, what some of these things could be, but I know that the suppliers are often chomping at the bit to do these unique offerings. And then another thing is, what is something that very few people know about? While, we go to a destination, we always want to go to the places that everybody is raving about, but maybe there are small family-run restaurants where they sit around and eat with you family style. So it's nice to kind of go off the beaten path sometime and just taking that kind of controlled risk. So those are some good questions, again, to kind of elevate the responses that you might be getting from your suppliers. When the suppliers send their responses to you, obviously you just want to be very thorough in checking for their cost. Does it work within your budget? Making sure they have all the dates correct, assuring that they've answered all of your questions and provided the details that you requested, and that they've really done a good job kind of in their line of communication. If you start to see things maybe falling through the cracks or they really are missing the mark, it could be a little bit of a red flag of what could be coming down the road if you moved into planning. So you just want to really kind of vet those suppliers and assure that you are going to get that high quality delivery for your clients. I want to talk a little bit more now about the incentive program as a whole and just making sure that you all understand the goals and the objectives of that. So it is extremely important to understand who the qualifiers are. And often, as I mentioned, a lot of times they are salespeople, but not always. We generally talk about three different I'm going to go ahead and write real quickly here. We talk about three different audiences, and we talk about the clients might be sending their employees. So these are people who earn their paycheck from that client company. They might actually be customers. Sometimes we have incentive trips that is sent out to the customer. We've had a client that they do incentives based on the amount of advertising that companies have purchased. So it could be a customer. It also could be a group that we call channel partners. And channel partners do not necessarily receive their paycheck from the company. Instead, they are the people that these companies rely on to get their product or service out to market. So these could be auto dealers. The auto dealer down the street from your home doesn't necessarily collect their paycheck from the automaker. They own their own auto dealership, but the automaker depends on them to get their product out to the market. So that's all the more reason that we have kind of this high level of VIP service, because the hosting organization really relies on these people to make their business successful. So it's important to understand who the qualifiers are. It's also important to understand who's handling the campaign. And if a client would come to you and you really are in event management, I would perhaps shy away from saying, yes, we will run your incentive campaign as well, because there are a lot of complexities, and it's always great to use experts, and there are a lot of experts out there. These experts understand the legal components and the rule structure and what you can and can't do. They've done extensive studies on neuroscience. They know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and what wires people as they are. They have best practices. They have the technology to track the progress of the guest. They understand how to do the return on investment calculation. So they can say to a client, you're going to earn, $1 million in revenue, and then you're going to put, $200,000 into a small incentive trip. So they can show that justification. And then they also have the mechanisms to communicate with the people who are striving to earn the trip. A lot of them have mobile apps that I can check my progress, and it can say we're taking the top 100 people, and right now your ranking is the 87th person. So I'm kind of on the brink. I could be pushed out, So with that said, it always is wise to use the experts. And the other course offered by Cite on the case for incentive travel can help with that as well. When it comes to the administration and performance tracking, again, hopefully the experts would be doing that for you. But it's very important that they are capturing the information and tracking performance, and that they're providing these updates to those people who are striving to qualify. It's very important for them to understand, yes, I'm the top salesperson, so my odds are really, really good. I'm sitting in the #1 position, or I'm in the 99th position, and they're only taking 100. So it's important to also give the guests or the people who are competing access to the rules and the standings. And so it's also extremely important that you are kind of tracking with the client throughout the phase. They might find out that with their sales campaign that their product sold more than they could have ever imagined. And they're not going to have 100 winners, but they're on track to have 200 winners. I say winners, I should say earners. But now you have an issue because you need to go and get 100 more hotel rooms. So it's very important to see how they're doing. On the flip side, maybe the market was saturated and they didn't get as many people to earn it as they thought. And so you have to watch and reduce your room count to make sure you're not in penalty. Often there are award levels, and so we might say this entire trip is hosted and covered for you if you earned this amount. But if you didn't earn that amount, you have to pay for one night of your trip. Or you can bring a guest, or you have to pay for your guest. So sometimes, depending on their level of achievement, it might alter what is actually included for them. Another important question to ask is if they are not able to travel with the group, can they take the trip on their own? Can we give them a gift card that has the dollar amount? Can we give them something else instead? So it's important to see what happens in lieu of the trip. It is also important to make sure that the attendees know that if it is a pure incentive trip with no business meeting, that they will indeed be taxed on the value of their trip. So when they get their W-2s or their 1099s, it will show the value of the trip, and it will almost contribute to their salary, if you will. And so that's important to know. Sometimes it could jump people into a different tax bracket, and they choose to decline the trip because of that. So it's very important to understand that and consult with your legal counsel. It's also important to know when the actual incentive campaign ends. So it might be just a first quarter campaign that they're going to start it in January, go till the end of March. It does not mean that on April 1st we will have all of the names and we'll be ready to start airline booking. There are often times that those names of the people who earned the trip have to be approved, and then they have to wait 30 days before they unveil the names. So it's just important to understand, when will we know who the travelers are? All right, I'm going to keep on going. I'm going to take just about 5 more minutes to wrap up my content, and then we will be able to open this up for, I hope, some conversation. So with the planning process, once we do our proposal, we hope that we've just hit it on the mark and the client loves it, and they will choose to purchase that from us. What we will do then is move into that contracting phase where we create what we call a statement of work. And so I would normally ask you all to just take a minute with a legal pad next to you to write down what do you think should be included in a statement of work. But a statement of work is basically a project-specific contract that puts you and the hosting organization on the same page as far as what we're agreeing upon. So I've listed on the screen the things that you should include. You want to include the definition of the program, the scope of work, what you will do and will not do. It's important to put a timeline in so we have all key milestones agreed upon on one page. It is wise to put a snapshot of the itinerary of what's going to be happening each day. And I won't read through all of these. I'll let you all take a moment to read these yourself. They're on the screen for you. But you're talking about key dates and your contact information, what is not only included but what is excluded. And then if you are doing some corporate social responsibility, that's important to do that. So I'll give you just a second to look over this slide. All right, so those are the things that you will include in your statement of work. And if you don't have an official one, I would encourage you to really pursue that with your leadership and possibly include someone with a legal background to work with you and make sure that you're covering all of your bases. One of the things we mentioned in the SOW is if you're doing something with corporate social responsibility, to make sure to outline that. And these incentive trips are a great time when you take something that's really kind of all about the attendees, but you actually give them that opportunity to perhaps make it all about someone else. And that can be very rewarding. We're all wired to want to contribute and make a difference to people. So we do a lot of team building, taking the people out and rebuilding a playground or replanting, plants, having some team building and build a bike and then bring the bike to kids in foster care. And then also just making sure that you're having a lot of green components of your meeting, sustainable aspects of the meeting. I also recommended to include a timeline. So whether you use Excel or Word, you want something that just puts all the key milestones on one page. When are we making the announcement? When are we starting the registration process? When will we send them their final mailing? When are we having meetings? When do we have to pay the suppliers? So I would encourage you to formalize your timeline. And then we mentioned giving a snapshot of the itinerary. And when you do your statement of work, you don't have to be very granular into every little menu item, but you do want to just have kind of a glance of the, which day of the program and what we're doing, morning, afternoon, and evening. So a lot of times you can just use a type of grid format. But I'm just going to give some additional suggestions here to give them more leisure time. We do something that we call Your Day, Your Way, where we leave a whole day and maybe we get some rental cars and they can kind of craft their own day, because what I want to do is probably quite different than what you would like to do. Again, behind the scenes, maybe some custom elements. You can talk to the bartenders if you have a group that likes to drink, and you can say, we want to have a custom drink made that is just for this client. Can you craft something that's maybe their logo color of beverage, so you can do custom menus, all sorts of things there. There's probably an awards banquet, so we really want to make that a big deal. We have, again, more room gifts. So overall, who's going to pull all of this together? It is wise on your incentive trips, obviously, to have kind of a project manager or an incentive planner who's going to pull all of these details together for the client. As they start to work forward, we create something called briefing notes. And briefing notes are basically just become almost like your on-site staff manual. And in there, we would obviously include all of the elements, all of the inclusions, all of the contacts, and it just gives you all of that information. And so this is just a little knowledge check to make sure you're still with me. But what is the document that we do after the contract that plans all of the details? And if you're paying attention, I just mentioned this, the briefing notes. Throughout incentive, it's very likely that you will have change. There's a saying that says the only thing that is constant is change. But we're very likely to have change, especially with your guest count, when you don't quite anticipate how many people will earn the trip. But it's very important on incentives to manage your change. So when we talk about scope management, we're talking about providing what was promised to the client. When we talk about scope change, this is when we have to make adjustments. And often there's something kind of called a triangle of flexibility, where you have the budget on one side, you have the timing on one side, and you have the quality on the other side. And normally if one of these things changes, it changes the other component. So my client might say, I want to launch the invitation earlier than we thought. And I can say, well, we can do that, but please know that I might have to incur some overtime to make that happen. So it might cost more money. Or please know that if you're wanting me to send this out more quickly than we thought, it could impact the quality. They might say, oh, I want to do a more high quality room gift. Oh, well, you can do that, but please know that this might change. So it's important to understand kind of this triangle of flexibility. So also with change, it is important to have a process by which you document the change. So having some type of change request form that basically allows you to just kind of say, you were not planning on doing room gifts, now you are. That is adding $50 per person, and so your budget has changed. You did not have as many earners as you thought, so we're releasing 50 hotel rooms. So you just want to cover your basis in writing. And then you also want to make sure that you are planning and taking corrective action if things do not, go as planned. And that is really kind of everything I have for you all today. We, again, went through the phases of, I'm going to just go back real quickly and summarize with our phases. We talked about proposal. The statement of work is, I'm sorry, let me put this back into show mode for you. Probably making you all dizzy. One moment, please. So we talked about the proposal and costing, the contract being the statement of work, and we talked about the importance of planning and delivery. And then we kind of talked quite a bit about the qualifying period and understanding who the people are and when the key dates are. The travel operation and the closing and debriefing, those kind of all fall into place. Our main purpose here was to really kind of talk about the planning and everything that goes in front of the travel operation. So at that point, I would love to open up the phones if we could, Nicole, and I would love it if someone would be a brave soul and throw out a question.
Great. And as a reminder to our audience, you can type in your questions via the chat and answer box, or if you are dialed into a telephone and you would like to verbally ask a question, just feel free to raise your hand and I will unmute your phone. We'll give everyone a few seconds to see what comes in.
You getting anything at all, Nicole?
Nope, we just gotten a few thank yous in. That's about it. So
okay. I am curious, and I don't know if anyone could chat or chime in really quickly. Is anyone really doing anything with being more intentional about designing your incentive travel or building more of a guest experience or any unique components? Normally, some people like to kind of brag and share some good ideas that they're doing. But I know that sometimes people are doing this and have other things they're doing as well. So no pressure here. Just wanted to make sure everyone felt like they could contribute one way or the other. All right, Nicole, are we good then?
Yep, I think we're all set.
All right, yes, and as Nicole mentioned in the beginning, you all have a way to reach out to ask further questions. And Nicole, could you remind us of your email again for that?
Yes, if you do have any questions, feel free to email me at education@siteglobal.com. And also don't forget to check out the Site Education Week page for our recordings from this week's webinars.
Yes, and if there are people on your team you would like to share this with, it will be recorded and you are able to share that with people. And then my email at Merritt's is just my name. It's just Ann, A-N-N, .Gravette, G-R-A-V like Victor, E-T-T-E, @Merritt's.com. And so if you have any questions specifically for me about the content, I'm more than happy to share or expand. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
And I'd like to thank you, Anne, for your today's presentation, and also like to thank our audience members for attending. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.